All right, Larry Krueger here at Levi's with our 49er training camp practice preview, and this is a preview of practice number 11. Beautiful day here in Santa Clara. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon, say hi to Mary, and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. Today is the final training camp practice before they head off to Vegas to practice with the Raiders on Thursday and Friday in advance of the first preseason game, which comes up on Sunday. All right, let's talk a little bit about the main topic with the Niners in this camp, and that's the quarterbacks. Brock Purdy's the number one guy. He's going to practice in Vegas. He's not going to play in the preseason game, most likely. Kyle Shanahan told us that yesterday. And really, it's a competition for that number 2 job between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. Brandon Allen's there, but he's more in line, I think, for the 3rd job. I think Lance is a little bit better right now than Darnold. I think Lance has been more impressive. He's just more consistent. Darnold has great days. Darnold has bad days. Darnold has, moments where he does things that a 5-year veteran shouldn't do. Yesterday, he ran past the line of scrimmage on a pass play and drew a penalty for trying to throw it after, going beyond the line of scrimmage. Lance is playing efficiently. He's completing a higher percentage of his passes most days. All of the deep cut patterns are lasers. He's throwing it right in there. He looks really good doing it. So I would say Trey Lance has edged past Sam Darnold. It's close. I mean, it's a practice-to-practice deal. If you catch Darnold on the right day, he looks like the better of the two. But more days, Trey looks better, and I would say he's the number 2 guy. Now, this is what I predicted coming into this camp. I said Trey's going to beat out Sam Darnold in the preseason. Right now, I would not back off of that. I would say I would agree with my own assessment that Trey is just a little bit better than Darnold, and it looks a little bit better just consistently. And I think he's going to play well in the preseason. Lance is eliminated. To me, the number one thing with Lance is he's reworked his mechanics. I think the finger's healthy. He's throwing a much better ball. It's a tight spiral, and he's throwing it consistently. All of the cut routes, right, the ins and the outs, anything from 8 yards to 25 yards, he's throwing those passes almost better than any other quarterback in the entire camp, including Purdy. Trey is still missing some of the short stuff, and it's just the release point, the arm speed. I mean, he's played 1 year of football since high school, and it shows. And you can study hard, you can want it, you can do all these different things, but the reality is that nothing replaces game experience, and he just doesn't have a whole lot. So how does that show itself? It shows itself on all the little touch and timing routes, which are a huge part of this offense, but that's where it shows. So he'll get the back in the flat, and sometimes he'll release it high, and the ball sails on him. Other times he'll follow through too much, and the ball hits the grass in front of the receiver. He doesn't throw those passes with touch and timing. His tempo is sometimes a little off. But overall, he looks dramatically improved from last year. His accuracy is way better. I think he's playing now in the team drills to get first downs and to keep his offense on the field. And I love it because that's what quarterback's all about. It's about keeping your team on the field, getting first downs and touchdowns. And so I would say Lance is ahead of Darnold. Allen has looked really good on the short stuff, the quick game. In some ways, he's maybe their most advanced thrower outside of Purdy in all the nuances of throwing the football. But anything that's more than like 20 yards down the field, he's got to jump into it and really put all of his body into it before he makes the throw. And so his arm strength is a little limited, and that makes him the 4th quarterback in this four-horse race. The Niners have a good group of running backs, but Elijah Mitchell's got an abductor, and Field Yates from ESPN reported yesterday the Niners worked out 4 running backs: Huntley, McNichols, Hill, Brian Hill. There was one other there as well. Not really sure why, because, between TDP, who looks great, Jordan Mason, who looks great, the 2 undrafted rookies, Laburn and Awatt, and CMC, they seem like they have enough backs. And none of those guys that they're working out really, to me, were or difference makers in any way, shape, or form, or even guys that can remotely make this roster. I mean, maybe McNichols if he, got into the good rhythm, but that tells you that the abductor injury for Elijah Mitchell is not just a day-to-day thing, that he's probably going to miss a few weeks. And this is the problem with Elijah Mitchell. He's got a big man's game and a small man's body. He's a 200-pound guy who runs it up between the tackles. He takes a lot of hits. Now, he ran 4.33 coming out of Lafayette, Louisiana, and yet he doesn't play to that speed. But what he does, he's got great pick and slide. He's got great instincts. He's no negative yardage plays. You can't tackle him for a loss. He never fumbles. I mean, that right there is a valuable back, and I know they'd love to have him, but I just kind of wonder about his long-term future in the NFL because, as I said, he runs between the tackles, he takes a lot of hits, and he gets hurt. And he's been consistently hurt the last couple of years. So I love Elijah Mitchell as a player, but I don't know about his future in the NFL. And it'll be interesting to see how his future goes. The wide receiver competition, Debo's primed for a career year. Ayuk's primed for a career year. But the guys behind them are very much in a tight race. Now, I love Danny Gray, and I think Gray is the fastest receiver, and I think he's going to be on this roster. But Ronnie Bell, Tay Martin, Chris Conley, Ray McLeod, Juwan Jennings, these guys are competing for a spot or two. And, Ray's been very productive. Jennings is battling a little bit of a hamstring. He's had good days and bad. Conley's made a couple of plays here and there, as has Ronnie Bell. The guy that stands out to me is Tay Martin. He's got a great rapport with Trey Lance. He runs terrific routes, great ball skills, 6'3", big hands, plucks the ball out of the air, stronger than he was coming out of college at Oak State. I've loved big play Tay going back to Wazoo, and I think the Niners really have something there. He is a guy to watch this weekend against the Raiders in that preseason game. I think Tay Martin's going to go off in the preseason. Another two guys to watch are the rookie tight ends, Cam Latu and Braden Willis. Out here on the practice field, it's been pretty much like Willis, maybe slightly above Latu, but they have not separated themselves from one another in my mind. So I'm looking for that today. The swing tackle battle is something I'm looking for. Jalen Moore, Matt Pryor, Leroy Watson. Who's going to emerge? I get the idea that maybe the Niners may have to look outside the organization for that swing tackle. The team to watch this at the cutdown is Cincinnati. They've got Jonah Williams. They signed Zeus Brown. Those are the starters. They've got Lael Collins as a backup tackle. They also have a young guy from East Carolina that I love, Deontay Smith. I think they've got tackle depth, and maybe the Niners could swing a deal. I like Smith and Collins more than I like Jalen Moore, Matt Pryor, and Leroy Watson. Moore has had some injury problems. He's the guy that I think they would like to have take the job. Watson's improved, but he's got a long way to go. Pryor is a veteran. He's got experience, but the conditioning doesn't look like it's great, though he did look pretty good yesterday in the one-on-ones. The big issue with the Niners is the backup defensive ends. Somebody's got to emerge. The guy I'll be watching today is Austin Bryant. He had a great practice yesterday. He had a sack. He had a tackle for a loss. Bryant's key. He's got to emerge as a rusher. Taco Charlton, hopefully he can keep it rolling. Hopefully Robert Beal can get back on the field. If those three things can happen, maybe the backup defensive end issue is not as much of an issue. The other thing to watch today are the injuries. Drake Jackson got dinged up yesterday in practice. Is he out there again today, or is he sitting this one out? Marlon Davidson, the veteran defensive lineman, who I really like as well. He can play. He's a fast interior guy who can play a little end, a little tackle. He didn't finish practice yesterday and had to go to the locker room. Was he out there today? Juwan Jennings has got a hamstring he's getting stretched out yesterday on the sidelines. Does he play today? Are we going to see Darrell Luter Jr., the rookie corner from South Alabama? He's on the PUP list. I'd love to see him out here in one of these practices. And then, of course, we already mentioned Elijah Mitchell. Overall, though, I'd have to say, one of the big positives is that we have not seen Nick Bosa. And you might be sitting there going, wait, Krug, how's that a positive? It's a positive because Nick Bosa is the fourth best player in the NFL, according to the NFL Network's breakdown. And he's not here. He doesn't need to be here. And most importantly, he's not out for the year. Because if the Niners lose Bosa, they're in a real tough spot. And so I look at that as a win. Every day that goes by that Bosa's not here, I think that's advantage 49ers long term. I'm not worried about Bosa's conditioning. I'm not worried about him. You know, if we get to August 20th and he's still not here, then let's talk. Until then, I'm really glad that they're not subjecting him to training camp battles, joint practice battles, preseason games that he doesn't need to play in. This guy's, you know, one of the best in the league. Does he need some time? Yeah. Does he need some practice reps? Sure. Does he need maybe 4 or 5 series in a preseason game? Yeah. But he doesn't need a month of banging heads. And I want him healthy at the end of the year, not at the beginning. And so every day that Bosa's not here, I consider that a win. And the other thing I'm looking for today is which young linebacker stands out. Some days it's D. Winters. Some days it's Marcelino McCrary-Ball. Some days it's been Jalen Graham. Some days it's been all three. To me, these are 3 outstanding young linebackers who are going to make it really difficult for Oren Burks and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles and Curtis Robinson to make this roster. And it's always fun going out to practice and just seeing which great young linebacker of the Niners really stands out in a particular practice. So I'll be looking for that today as well. All right, that does it for our 49er practice number 11 preview. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Later on today, around 4 or 5 o'clock, I'll be live streaming with the great Guy Haberman. So look for that. We'll break down practice later today in a live stream and talk to hopefully a bunch of you guys. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle, and thanks to all you guys. Time to head to practice. Have a great day. Beautiful weather here in Santa Clara. Go Niners.